Well, as Mark just mentioned, a number of seats in Sydney will have a major impact on which way the election goes. Western Sydney in particular has become a focal point for both parties. The ABC's George Roberts took a look at some of the key seats and issues in the West.
G'day.
You know you're important when the leaders make a point of dropping in.
The people of Western Sydney.
In Western Sydney.
Western Sydney.
Western Sydney.
The Prime Minister and the man who's vying for her job have maintained a steady presence, both ending up here again the day before the poll.
What's your name?
The battle is over this, the vast expanse of Western Sydney. It's Australia's third largest economic zone, home to nearly 1 in 10 Australians, and more than a third of the constituents were born overseas. Those that represent the region say there's a good reason it's had so much attention.
What you see happen in Western Sydney is indicative of what happens in the rest of Australia. We're the area where you'll see the impact of population first. We're the area where you see impacts from poor public transport, and our quality of life is impacted by poor government decision making.
The political landscape is a patchwork of more than a dozen electorates. Among them is Lindsay, which has gone with the government every year since 1984. It's held by Labor's David Bradbury, who's up against the Coalition's newcomer Fiona Scott. While the Penrith-based seat isn't marginal, a backlash against Labor in a state by-election there could affect the federal member. On the West's outer ring, Macquarie is one of the most marginal Labor seats in the country, on less than 0.5%. In the far southwest, Macarthur is a marginal Liberal seat. But despite the complicated makeup, many of the issues in the region are pedestrian.
The lack of public transport that's available for residents out here means that people don't have access to jobs, they don't have access to education, and they don't have the time to spend with their family that other people in the city have.
The Coalition hasn't committed to any major transport initiatives for the area. But 10 days out from the election, the Prime Minister made her biggest campaign commitment, more than $2 billion for a Western Sydney rail link. A planning expert says the announcement could backfire for the Labor brand. It's a pledge first made in the 1990s, and it's seen locally as part of a series of broken transport promises.
Even though those are state government issues, I think for a lot of people they're starting to see it as a Labor issue, which I think will cause the Labor Party some problems on Saturday.
In a study partly supported by the Reserve Bank, Professor Phibbs found that some of Western Sydney's key seats have the worst levels of housing stress in the country.
I think it'll make a difference for some people. The whole cost of living thing is an issue for people in Western Sydney like the rest of Australia.
It's just one of many crucial issues weighing on these make-or-break electorates. George Roberts, ABC News, Sydney.